Welcome to the Legacy Network, bppaln.org, the Party Report. I'm Eusebio Holiday. In Brazil, supporters of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro stormed the Supreme Court and Presidential Palace on Sunday. The police arrested over 400 rioters after the mob trashed offices, broke windows, destroyed computers, and artwork that was on display. The attack was 1 week after the inauguration of returning President Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva, who had this to say: "Democracy demands respect," and he called the protesters Nazi fascists. Bolsonaro's supporters refused to accept his election loss, and Bolsonaro never formally conceded, instead leaving Brazil for Florida, as U.S. lawmakers call for him to be extradited back to Brazil. These attacks resemble the January 6th incident in Washington, D.C. In El Paso, Texas, President Biden visited the U.S.-Mexico border for the first time since taking office 2 years ago. Biden toured a migrant shelter, but did not get to meet with any migrants. He instead met with Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott, who continues to intensify anti-immigrant hate speech. Abbott handed Biden a list of demands for more border enforcement. Biden announced another year of Title 42, the Trump policy that blocks Haitian and Cuban immigrants from seeking asylum. In California, Republican Kevin McCarthy was elected House Speaker. After a historic 15 rounds of voting, McCarthy was forced to make concessions to the hard-right faction of the Republican Party. During the 14th round of voting, Congressmember Matt Gaetz refused to vote for McCarthy, leaving him one vote shy of victory, causing angry Congressmember Mike Rogers of Alabama to yell and lunge at Gaetz. North Carolina Congressmember Richard Hudson stepped in to stop the fight. McCarthy won by 4 votes over Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffrey. 6 Republicans did not vote, and that was enough to secure the victory. After victory, McCarthy thanked former President Donald Trump for his victory. Immediately after victory, Republicans began swearing in lawmakers, including New York Republican George Santos, who is being investigated for his finances and for completely fabricating his resume and life history. Before taking office, Santos was seen throwing up hand signs that many say are white supremacist symbols. House members say they will not vote until McCarthy shows details about his plans to defund programs Republicans oppose and his plans to remove Democrats from his board and his plans to eliminate labor unions. In China lifted all travel restrictions, opening up travel from mainland to Hong Kong. In Iran executed 2 men involved in the uprising sparked by the death of Massamini while in police custody. On Thursday, police arrested reporter Maddie Bake, who interviewed families of death row prisoners in Iran. Meanwhile, Iran released actress Tirana Al-Dusty, the star of Oscar-winning film The Salesman. She was detained in Iran for voicing support for the protests. In Kenya, LGBT activist Edwin Chaloba was found dead, murdered, burned, and left in a box on the roadside. In Utah, the Great Salt Lake will disappear in 5 years without dramatic cuts to water consumption. Scientists say since the year 2020, the lake has lost 40 billion gallons of water each year, and exposure to the lake bed will cause exposure will expose people to toxic dust that can cause asthma and heart disease. In New York City, over 10,000 nurses went on strike after failing to reach a new contract agreement with Mount Sinai Hospital. Nurses demand higher wages and a stop to benefit cuts, and for more staff to be hired to treat patients. Nurses are also denouncing the inhumane treatment of patients, as some patients are forced to receive medical care in bathrooms and hallways due to overcrowding. In Florida, descendants of black people who survived racist attacks in Rosewood gathered to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the massacre. In January 1923, a white mob raided the homes of black families after a white woman accused a black man of assault. The United States government refuses to pay black people reparations for slavery and racial violence. As usual, the question is, where do we go from here? And that's the report. This is the Legacy Network, bpp.org, the Party Report. I'm ECBO Holiday. Heart to the people.